Welcome to the second episode of Season 5 of the 98% Life After Prison podcast, a show dedicated to all incarcerated people in North Carolina who will eventually be released back into our communities. We're also a podcast devoted to the idea that reentry begins the moment that someone is incarcerated. I'm April Barber Scales.
And I'm Judy Van White. April, you and I usually begin each season by catching up with each other, like what we've been doing in the in-between times. Well, we already know that I had a shoulder replacement. What have you been up to since the beginning of May, I think it is?
Well, since last May, I've continued with school, and as of next month, two things will happen. I will turn 50, the big 50, on November the 9th, and on November 23rd, I will walk across the stage with my Bachelor of Science in Criminal Justice.
Wow, those are two really big things. You turn 50.
Yeah, big 50. And your shoulder issues have jumped on to me. I'm having some shoulder and neck, arm issues and stuff now, not related to age, probably just extensive exercise, but hopefully, I'll get back on track and begin 50 brand new and whole.
And you work your body hard. You got to admit that.
I do. And it is rebelling at the moment, guys.
It'll do that. But just be good to it, and it'll
be good to you. Yeah,
that's right. That's exactly right. Okay, moving on. Today we're going to hear the story of a gentleman who spent 33 years of a life sentence behind the fence and wrote a memoir about his experience. I've known Ronnie Harris for a few years now, but I never knew his story. Then last year, a mutual friend who April and I both know called me to say that I had to interview Ronnie. Ronnie gave me his manuscript to read, and we got together one Sunday afternoon to talk about it. Here's the story he told me.
I am the baby boy out of 15 head, my mother and father. My mother basically raised me. And we lived on farms, worked in tobacco, and we moved around a lot because if a bigger family came along, the farmer would tell us we have to move because it ain't number three of us. So, he get more help with the bigger the family is. Like he said, I went to school while I was living out there on the farm, but I didn't never graduate. I dropped out. I think I dropped out right when I turned 18. And I just started working full time on the farm. But for working on the farm, I loved doing it. I enjoyed doing it. It was exciting when I was real young. But as I became older, I understand that you really couldn't make a living. You couldn't buy a home or nothing like that because of the money, the low pay that you were getting. So eventually, and all the other kids my age, we coming up in school, we were looking for more like a factory job. Because during that time, working in a factory or a plant or something like that there, they pay more, and that's how, at that time in the early 80s, that was all the young guys, we were quitting school. Quitting school was something like, that's what I want to do. I can't wait to turn 18. And it was just a majority of everybody were quitting, that poor kids out in the country and stuff like that. And plus they had to try to help their mother or their parents pay the bills.
How old were you when you went to prison?
I was 20 years old when I went to Central Prison. That was in 1985.
So you were still figuring it all out, right?
Yes. I'm saying, I didn't know nothing about responsibilities or none of that. I'm saying, I was just basically a teenager, who made a mistake.
Tell us briefly about your mother. She was a central figure even after you went to prison. And tell me how she figured in your life.
My mother was my rock. And you got to realize I was her last out of 15 heads. So she spoiled me. Yes, she spoiled me. It's hard because I miss her now. She passed away while I was locked up. But you got to think about it. She had to be a strong woman. She had 15 head of kids. And every one of them is brother and sister, whole brother and sisters. And my pop, he was something like what they call a Rolling Stone. I listened to my older sibling talk about him, and I'm saying, he just wasn't there for them, none of them. For me and my brother Charles, the last two, to me, he was always there for me. I reckon he was trying to make up because of what he did to all the older siblings. But I love my daddy very much, and I respected him, and couldn't wait to see him when he pulled in the yard to come visit us. My mother, as long as I can remember, never had nothing bad to say about my father. When I went and visited while I was in prison, when my father was passing away, he got cancer. And the correction officer come to me and told me that they're going to carry me up there to see him because he requested to see me before he passed. So I was at Eastern Correctional, and they took me out to the hospital, handcuffed to another officer. And when I walked in the room, my mother was there, and also my stepmother, Miss Zebma Elwa. My father had remarried, and she had been with me also, along with my mother, stood with me over the years until she passed. I could always count on Miss Zebma. But the funny thing is that when I walked in the room, Miss Zebma hollered, "There go my baby." And my mama corrected it. "That's not your baby, that's my baby." I won't never forget that.
You wrote a memoir that I read. Why did you decide that you needed to write down your memories of what happened to you in prison?
I got introduced to the word memoir going to Yokefella, sitting at Nancy Fisher's table. And Nancy was talking to me one night, talking about a memoir. She writing a memoir. So her kids and her daughters and grandkids would know something about her life. So when I asked her what was a memoir, she told me. And she suggested that I should write a memoir. And it was like an idea for when I get released, I can leave like a little pamphlet in there for guys who coming behind me that they could read and encourage them. That's what it started out to be. But after I turned 2 pages in that I had wrote to Nancy, Nancy said, "You should go and do a full memoir. Your experience and everything, what you lived through, what you went through, how you were feeling." And that's how the memoir came to exist.
And you went to prison in 1985, when the prisons, it was before the building boom. They hadn't started building prisons yet, but at the same time, the war on drugs had started. So the prisons were pretty crowded. You described very crowded conditions. Yeah, describe the conditions when you went to, say, Caledonia and the other closed custody camps.
When I first came in Central Prison, 1985, it was so crowded that a lot of us had to sleep on the floor. They gave us a mattress and a blanket and a pillow and said, go find you a place somewhere to sleep. You had people sleeping in the shower, bathroom area. Anywhere they had a spot to put a mattress, that's where they slept. That's how crowded it was.
What was that like?
First of all, you got to realize, 19 years old, going to maximum custody, Central Prison, death row. I was scared. You know, so I'm saying that didn't help the situation because, like I said, this was at a time when you didn't see no program, you didn't talk to nobody or nothing. You just were processed in and you base it on your own, you know. So it was very nervous and I was very nervous and very scared. But I knew I had to be tough. So I found me a spot and like I said, you know, and just went to sleep and hoped that I was just dreaming. Hope that the next day I wake up, I'll be back home.
But that's a nightmare that continued. And you talk a lot in your memoir about the violence. Can you talk about the violence and living with that every day?
Well, being incarcerated at Central Prison, I learned this was a new world. This was the same world I'm used to, the free world. The thinking, how to do things. I had to learn everything from the basic of looking at someone. There were rules and what they call the prison law that I had to learn. And I was blessed at the time to have a guy who had been down a long time. We used to call him Big C. He ran the clothes house. The whole prison staff respected him. He ran Central Prison at that time. And you had good old heads that been down when they try to show you or teach you, tell you the do's and the don'ts because they know you green. So they told me the first thing you need to do when you get up in the morning, find you a shank, a homemade knife. Don't mess with the TV. Don't mess with the gambling. And don't mess with the punks. Although it will get you killed. And don't stare at nobody. So back there when I come along, I used to wear shades 24/7. I even go in the shower with the shades on. You know, you didn't want people to see your eyes. You know. It wasn't until I made minimum custody at Orange Correction that I stopped wearing shades. Central Prison was a very dangerous place. And during that time, all close custodies were very dangerous. And one thing I can say about the experience in the 80s, 90s, there wasn't no kind of gang bang thing. It wasn't anything about gang. It was about respect, loyalty, you understand? That what made you do your time and how you do your time. You know, it wasn't no banking, 3 or 4 guys jumping on somebody. Back then, if one person and 5 more guys jump on that one person, you're going to bring everybody off the wall trying to stop it or hurt the people that trying to bank him. It's a one-on-one thing. It's about respect. Use a man, take care of your business. You don't need 3 or 4.
You don't really talk about this in your memoir, but what were the racial politics like?
When I come in the 80s, it wasn't too much racial tension. It was convicts, white, black, Mexican, Indian, even though that we hung with our group, but it was never nothing about races when I came through the system. It was just about respect, law. That's it. And you violate those codes, you know something's gonna happen. You may not know where it's coming from, but you know something's gonna happen.
Time is a major theme that you talk about in your memoir. Talk about why that became a theme, and talk about time and doing time.
Well, time became a major thing in my memoir, because as I began to reflect and think, time was the punisher. It wasn't the fence, it wasn't the gauze, it was time. That was something, you were losing time for everything in your life. Things going on, life going on outside these walls. And inside, you have a lot of time to think and reflect on your life. I mean, when you are locked up in a single cell, all you got is time to think, thoughts. And when you look at your life while you locked down, you see all the mistakes. You see everything. Now, if you ain't willing to accept what you see, there won't be no change in you. But you have to see your mistakes in order to progress. I done seen time where time took people that wasn't a bad person, turn them into the monster that the system raises if you're not mindful of it. The system in the 80s when I first come in was designed to break you. Because feelings, empathy, or concern about another human being will get you killed. So you had to harden your heart. You had to put locks on your heart, build walls. So you see someone over there getting robbed or getting stabbed, you got to be able to walk by. Don't even look that way. I have to thank my mother because she didn't give up on me. And every visit day she was there. She was there. And she told me, baby, don't give up hope. God's going to have you a way out. That stuck with me. So I didn't never gave up hope. And time is just like a roller coaster during time. Emotionally you go, you high, you feel hope, you feel everything. Then you might be a month or 2 months later, you're going down where you want to give up. You just want to just forget everything. And that when you go into the abyss, you become part of the prison. And you are lost.
You You became a Muslim while you were inside. Can you tell us what motivated you to become a Muslim?
I had a homeboy from the same hometown I'm from. He was Muslim. He always come at me with the Muslim. And I told him the first time, I'm a Christian, born and raised. I would die for this religion. These are the exact words I told him. That night, I went close custody. I went in a single cell, but I went to my cell and I laid down. Didn't give it no more thought. I laid down, but then it started coming to me. I think that was about the ignorant thing I said in my whole life. When I told him that I would die for this religion, I haven't even read the Bible. How can I say that I would die for something I ain't never read it? I don't know just only what I've been taught and trained from my mother and my family. So that made me, that kind of like triggered a light within me. So I started seeking knowledge. First thing I did was read the Bible from the front to the back. Then I started researching and reading not just Muslim, but all type of religion that I could get my hand on. And out of all of them, Islam touched me. So I chose to become a Muslim.
And then while you were at Nash Correctional, which is a medium security prison, and which you said was the most humane camp that you had been to, you had another kind of, not conversion, but I guess maybe more like a spiritual awakening. Can you talk about that?
Yes, at the time I went to Nash, I have achieved all type of program that I had graduated from. And knowledge Islam pushed me to learn, to train my thought. So when I got to Nash, they were just bringing in a program called Carols, which lasts for 3 days, I believe. And my supervisor of the kitchen put my name in the hat she would like for me to participate. So normally I would say no, but by my respect for her, I decided to attend the 3-day thing. It's like we go in at about 8 o'clock in the morning, and we stay in the gym from 8 to about 5 o'clock. They provided meals coming from the street and everything, and they got programs going on, reading. This is a Christian program. And you sit with a group, you become in a group, and you just talk about the Bible, the verse, and everything. By the end of that program, when I went back to my room one night, I'm seeing tears start running out of my eyes. I'm just gonna say, after that experience, I had a different concept. I did not become back Christian. I left Islam. I became a person who believed. I didn't want to be labeled. I didn't want to be labeled as a Christian, Baptist, Muslim, or any, because and this is my own perception, that labels separate people. Labels make you want to prove the other person wrong, and you right. The way you think is right. I just want to be known and believe in goodness, good person, good human being. That's it. That's the label I want. And from that day on, that's how I live.
fast forward a couple years, you were eligible for a map. You got a map, and you were transferred to Orange Correctional. And you met the Yoke Fellows at Orange Correctional. First of all, who are the Yoke Fellows?
Yoke Fellows are volunteer people coming in, like I said, volunteer people who come in every Tuesday night at Orange Correction. And they sit at tables, and inmates go down there and just wherever they feel comfortable, whoever they feel comfortable, what group they feel comfortable, that's who they sit with every Tuesday night. And they conversate, once the trust get there, they conversate, talk about all kind of things, everything, it's just a beautiful program. And every Tuesday night, Nancy Fisher and all the Yoke Fellow were there. I mean, every Tuesday night.
Tell me when you got out and what you've been up to since you got out.
Well, that was the greatest day of my life. My parole officer was there, and we walked out the gate. That was a happy, happy day of my life, to walk through those gates.
And tell me just a little bit about your life now.
I had to crawl before I walked. I mean, I had to take different jobs and everything. Long I was getting paid and I was free, I was able to go through a lot of jobs. So now I done got to the point where I feel that I found the place that God had me to be. It's Carmore community. They're a community of helping people, situation for mental health, struggling, and this is who I have become. I get so much significant joy of able to give back and helping people. And I look at the mental health issues for here at Carmore, they are special. They are trying to learn to live on their own. And it's our job to assist them in any way we can to make them feel and know that they are special.
If you were going to have one thing that you were going to tell people who heard this interview, who are inside still, what would you advise them?
First, I'll tell you never give up hope, no matter what the situation are. How bad the feelings and everything, the roller coaster ride that I talked to you about. Every time you get to the bottom, know that hope will bring you back to the top. And no matter what nobody said negative, you are worth to reach your goal for freedom. Everything is in your control. If you want your freedom, make the moves toward it. Know that your freedom is there and prepare yourself for it.
Ronnie has been out 8 years now. He's married, has a house in the country, and 3 dogs. And while he avoids labels, Ronnie regularly attends Sunday meetings with the Quakers of Chapel Hill. He claims that without the support of the Quakers, he wouldn't be where he is today.
In his interview, Ronnie talks about Yoke Fellow volunteers at Orange Correctional, many of whom are Quakers themselves.
Yoke Fellows is a listening ministry first started by a Quaker theologian, Dr. Elton Trueblood, in Pennsylvania, and brought to North Carolina in 1969. April, did you have any Yoke Fellow volunteers at the women's prisons that you were at?
I think there were at most of the prisons. I know definitely when I was at the NCCIW prison for the 18 and a half years, a yoke fellow was a big population. And at Christmas, everyone wanted to join yoke fellow Bible study because they always fed everybody at the end of the year. And you had to attend a certain amount of meetings, so everyone wanted to get like a home-cooked meal at the end of the year. So like the majority of inmates have definitely been through yoke fellows.
We definitely bring snacks at OCC, and I think that's a big draw.
Yes, it is.
And I have to say, I don't consider myself a practicing Christian, but I will say that I have been moved by how accepting and truly caring the yoke fellow volunteers are at Orange Correctional. You know, it's really important that people who are going to be rejoining our communities are able to mix with people from the outside. I just think that's so important.
And that was one of the cool things, too. You like going to things that have volunteers so you can connect with the outside world. And volunteers can eventually be your sponsors to help take you out on passes once you get ready before your release.
Yeah, it helps. That connection really helps.
Yep, it does. Before we go, I need to mention the fact that on October 3rd, Governor Josh Stein signed House Bill 307, bringing back the death penalty to North Carolina by firing squad if no other method is available. The move to bring back the death penalty is a reaction to the recent event in Charlotte, where a formerly incarcerated man stabbed a woman to death on a commuter train.
But the truth is that having the death penalty back is not going to reduce violence. The man who killed Diurna has been diagnosed as a schizophrenic, but there doesn't seem to be any interest in the legislature on spending money on mental health services or any really true kind of crime prevention. I can't help but think about your friend Lyle Mays, who worked really hard to pull himself out of his own addiction and mental illness. Have you had a chance to talk to him recently?
Well, funny you mention, I didn't hear from Lyle a couple of weeks, and he usually calls me every Sunday. This Sunday he did, and before he opened his mouth, I guess I gave him my own 2 cents. I told him to, regardless of what happens, then I wanted him to continue to wake up on his recovery journey, to educate himself, and to continue to be who he was, and I told him that was non-negotiable. So after I gave him that, then I said, "Now, how are you doing?"
Go, April. No pity parties allowed.
That's right. Not at all.
Oh, goodness, girl. I'm sure he was so happy to hear from you.
Yes, he was. He was. Yeah.
How is he doing?
He is like the rest of them. He's processing it, but hopefully the others have as much support as he does. And like I told him, that him not continuing to be himself is non-negotiable. Whatever happens, I want him to be remembered as to who we know, not who they knew almost 30 years ago.
Yeah, he really is a different person.
Yep, we all are.
Yeah. Well, that's our show for today. Join us next time when we examine the intersection between homelessness and incarceration and hear from Dr. Brian Klausner, a Wake Med physician who has devoted his career to working with unhoused patients.
Until then, check us out on Facebook and Instagram, and you can reach us through our website at www.the98-lifeafterprisonpodcast.com.
Take care, all.
Bye, y'all.